How did you know you wanted to become a coach? I got this excellent reader question that I love to answer today. So, if we haven't met yet before, my name is Karolina Rzadkowska, and I'm an alcohol-free life coach. I'm also the author of the book Euphoric Ditch Alcohol and Gain a Happier, More Confident You, which came out this January 4th, and it's just been a wild success. I've been literally living out my biggest dream with this book coming out. So many people are reading it and sharing it, and it just melts my heart that it's just been so helpful and relatable. And really, what I hear the most is how empowering it is. How this book is just an empowering approach to look at your relationship with alcohol, no matter who you are, no matter what your drinking habit looks like. I hate how we think like, oh, it's not like this or it's not like that, or I just drink on the weekend, or I just drink wine every day or something. Honestly, I don't really care. I don't think it really matters. I think what matters is just as a society is really re-looking at how we even treat alcohol in our world, how we glamorize it, how we include it in every social occasion. Is it serving us? Is it allowing us to fulfill our bigger dreams? Is it allowing us to really fulfill our values and really be aligned with the person we want to be? And when you come from that angle, it's kind of easy to assess alcohol. It becomes something that starts to lose its allure a little bit for you because it's no longer this forbidden fruit, or it's no longer something that holds so much status to it. You're really kind of picking it apart and recognizing maybe this doesn't serve me anymore. Maybe it served me when I was in college or when I was younger, but it's just not who I am and who I want to become anymore. Especially I meet so many women who are really on a health journey. They're really improving their lifestyles by getting into wellness, getting into movement, getting into maybe yoga, maybe getting into mindfulness as well with meditation or spirituality. And it's often like alcohol is the one last big incongruency. Like everything else just is flowing in your life much better. You're taking care of yourself. And yet alcohol makes it glaringly apparent that, God, I don't really feel that great after drinking. And so the next day, you recognize that and you're doing everything else. You're drinking the green juice or you're meditating. And so alcohol becomes a little bit more noticeable that it really does affect our sleep, our brain, our bodies, everything. And I think when you come from that angle, it's so much easier to just be like, I don't know if I desire this in my life anymore. And when you read a book like this, it really helps you make sense of your relationship with alcohol. And it really also helps you kind of tear apart and debunk some of the limiting stories that we've all grown up to believe around our relationships with alcohol, how it fulfills these needs. It literally, a drinking habit will teach your brain that alcohol is the solution to so many things. To, the feeling of awkwardness you get when you're about to go socialize, to the, just the desire to turn off after a really hard, long day. All of these different needs, alcohol becomes this solution. And the thing that I love to teach is that I'm not trying to take away your solution, right? It actually doesn't work. Alcohol does not really work as a solution to most of those needs. And this book, Euphoric Ditch Alcohol and Gain a Happier, More Confident You, will explain that and help show that in a really empowering, enlightening way, without necessarily vilifying alcohol, but just really allowing you to come to terms with what you believe around it yourself. And so onwards, I come live every Wednesday at 8 a.m. to answer questions from my students and my clients. And I got an incredible question today. And it was, how did you know you wanted to become a coach? And I love answering this question because I think this is a huge part of the journey when you go alcohol free. I think that there are basically 3 phases when you go alcohol free. The first phase is really just learning how to change your drinking habit. You take a break, maybe you're deciding to going a month, maybe you're deciding to go 2 months, 6 months, it doesn't matter. But really in that phase, you're learning how to not drink, you're learning how to change your thinking about alcohol, you're really learning a lot of stuff about yourself. You start really kind of removing that one thing that doesn't serve you. Now in the second phase, I call this the newly alcohol-free phase, you're at this beautiful junction where you have this leverage. All of a sudden you removed your Achilles heel out of your life, and it's almost as if all the other things that were limiting you or that, you believed were just your own limits or your own tendencies start to kind of shift. Because when you shift one thing about your identity, it kind of tricks your brain, and your brain's kind of now like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I'm a morning person now, and maybe I could be a runner, and maybe I could be a coach. So it kind of, in one way, you trick your brain because, you've completely changed your identity in this one way from drinker to non-drinker, that now so much more is possible for you. Also, when you go alcohol free, you're doing something you've never done before. And when you're going like 30 days, 50 days, 60 days, part of your brain is like, oh my God, if you can do this, what else can you do? So, like I said, the first phase is really just removing the alcohol from your life and taking a break and focusing on that. And I think the second phase that I call of going alcohol free is the newly alcohol free phase, where all of a sudden you start to get new ideas. You start to really think about what's possible for your life. You start to really reassess even what you're doing as a career. You start having new ideas about expressing yourself. Maybe you get involved in new hobbies. Maybe you meet new people. Maybe you get engaged in a different community. And then I think the third phase of that is then really honing in that purpose and that sense of passion. And that's really taking those ideas and that exploration you did in the second phase and becoming it in your life, you know? And through this journey, you go literally from the student to the teacher. And so I got an incredible reader question. I answer questions from my students and clients every Wednesday at 8 a.m. And today's question is, how did I know I wanted to become a coach? And I think that this question was asked because someone's starting to think about it themselves, right? How did I know I wanted to become a coach? Well, obviously, I knew when I changed my relationship with alcohol that there was something magical to it. There was something so magical to this thing that literally had kept me stuck in this cycle of drinking every weekend and not being able to even conceive of socializing without it, and just all the ways I relied on it for years to all of a sudden completely losing my desire for alcohol. And I was like, whoa, this is magical. Like, this is something I need to help other people with. And so I knew that the process itself, the content itself, was really important. I knew that I was dying for a message like that when I was younger. I knew that literally the things that I had learned, I could go teach the past version of me then. And I knew that it was really, really important. And so, I knew I wanted to become a coach because literally the message and the transformation in my life just shocked me so much. Like I had gotten into other stuff before. You know what I mean? Like I had gotten into like different ways of living my life with either lifestyles or health, like new tips, or I had done other stuff and nothing had revolutionized my life the way that removing alcohol did. I've eaten plant-based, and while I completely love that, it's not the one thing that helped me gain all of my all of the sense of possibility. It was removing the alcohol that really did it for me. And so I knew that the message was really important, and I knew I really wanted to share it, and I knew I wanted to share it in the way that I needed to hear it. And that was the most empowering way. You could call like kind of like maybe a prideful person. And if I was to be thought of as a problem, if I was to be thought of having an issue, if I was to be thought that something was wrong with me, if I was to be thought that like something about me needed fixing, I just wouldn't have done it. I would have been like, no, that's not me, like I just didn't relate to any of that kind of terminology or that kind of viewpoint of how, people relate to alcohol. Basically, I needed to think of it like this. My life is okay. It's pretty good. But what if I made it even better? What if I like went the extra mile to do the things that most people won't do to make my life even better? That's how I needed to view removing alcohol from my life. And it worked. And that's removing it in this like power move. Instead of thinking I'm powerless, thinking I'm extremely powerful and I'm doing things that most people won't do, actually completely changed how I looked at alcohol. So I knew I needed that kind of approach, and I knew that other women needed it too. Especially like, God, it's crazy, but the spectrum of drinking is so wild, and most people find themselves in the middle. Most people are not hanging out on a park bench with a bottle of vodka in a brown paper bag. Like, that's just not the reality. Most people are in that kind of gray area where it's over drinking for sure for the health guidelines, but it's definitely not anything that's, let's call it an intervention around. And so when you're in that kind of a gray area, a lot of that old-fashioned paradigm around changing your relationship with alcohol, it really doesn't hit it on you. It really doesn't land on you as much. It really isn't this problem or that's a life or death situation. And so the scare tactic stuff just doesn't work. You need to find your own intuition to change. And I love this one analogy. When we think of marriage counseling, it's also got a stigma. So if we think about marriage counseling or marriage like retreats or anything that helps people bond in a relationship, we often think the worst, right? We often think like, oh my gosh, those people are gonna get a divorce and they have to go to marriage counseling to try to save their marriage, right? We think of like marriage counseling in this really bad light, the same thing as we do is changing your drinking. But I've come to see it as completely differently. What if my marriage is pretty good, but I want to make it even better? Would I therefore be interested in marriage counseling? Would I therefore be interested in going on a marriage retreat with my husband? Yeah, right? Like that's the way we need to frame it. And I think that's a really powerful change of perspective. And so I think that we need to do that with our lives too and really acknowledge ourselves for all the work we've already done. Most women I work with have done so much work on themselves before I even meet them. They are, living these healthier lifestyles. They're showing up as mamas. They are like smashing it in their career, or they're like, living a more mindful life. Like they've been doing this introspective personal growth work. It's not their first rodeo, right? So I think we need to acknowledge where people are coming from. Okay, back to it. How did I know I wanted to become a coach? So the knowing actually was the easy part. When I recognized that I could change my relationship with alcohol after struggling for years to just try to drink less, if I could just change it and remove my desire and be completely free of it and just feel like anything is possible for me, I knew I needed to teach that. And now I think that if you've changed your relationship with alcohol and you've gone through it, and even if it's been really challenging for you to change, I mean, who better than you than to teach someone else how to do it? Because you've been there and you understand it and you know exactly what to do and how to go through it. So the knowing kind of came to me, I would say, divinely. I remember literally being on a beach in Hawaii with a sunset, and like I just heard the word euphoric. And that's the name of my book, that's the name of my company, and I just knew that that was what I was meant to create. The knowing actually, for years of not knowing what to do with my career and not sure what I wanted to do with my life, I know how that feels, but the knowing actually came really easily. It was really this intuitive gut knowing. It just told me, like, you were meant to do this. And I think the person who asked me this question, how did I know I wanted to become a coach? I think they're starting to get that knowing too. And I think if you're interested in this topic, I think you're starting to get that knowing as well. Now, what do you actually do with that? Now, this is where fear comes in. This is where huge resistance and fear comes in. If you feel like you've changed your relationship with alcohol, or honestly, it could be anything. If you've changed your health journey, if you've, like used to be the biggest inner critic and now you like love yourself so much more, like any transformation you've had in your life. And if you want to think about teaching that to other people or becoming a coach and helping other people with their mindsets or with their wellness journeys, I think that when you're in that starting stage of starting to think about it, starting to really get interested in it, fear really comes up. Fear often looks like procrastination, resistance, perfectionism, and even criticism of other people. And what do I mean by that? Fear is literally like what keeps us stuck. It's what keeps us judging other people because like we're not doing the thing that we want to be doing, so we judge other people, right? Fear keeps us thinking that if it's not perfect, then I can't do it. If I don't have all of the credentials and I don't have this beautiful website and I haven't already worked with 30 clients, then I can't start working with one client, right? It's like we get so ahead of ourselves that it has to be perfect or we can't do it. It also shows up as procrastination or resistance, meaning like it just feels so hard to work on. Like, you want to work on your website, you want to launch this business, you want to start getting clients, and yet like actually sitting down and working on your website or your business plan or whatever stage you're at is so hard. All of these are just manifestations of fear. And I think that knowing that you want to become a coach or help other people is like one deep knowing that you hear. But then, like, next, you're going to have to go through that fear. And I think that fear, there's so many words for it, but there's imposter syndrome. There's literally feeling like, who the hell am I to think that I could help someone? Who the hell am I to think I'm qualified for that? Who the hell am I to, what are my family going to think? What are my friends going to think? It's so funny, especially when you're in a family dynamic and you're like the baby of the family, or you're the one who like always was considered more behind in your life or whatever it is, like you view yourself like that still. And so you think it's crazy, like what the heck would they think if I started a business or I started becoming a coach? And I think, again, fear stops us from doing really scary things that are also going to be really fulfilling. And, sometimes we're scared to be not to start even, but we're scared to start out looking small. Like we're embarrassed to be like, well, what if I start my business and I barely get any clients or I barely get any people to start working with me? And, that fear can really manifest and just make you feel like, I don't know if this is what I'm supposed to do. I have this nice cushy job. And I think if you're listening to this and you're watching this and you might have interest yourself of becoming a coach, first of all, you can appease that fear of not feeling like you're qualified, or you're not feeling like who the hell would listen to you, or anything like that. You can actually appease that by, getting professionally trained in whatever you want to do. Who's to say that someone who's certified, with a nutritionist background, or a wellness coaching certificate, or an alcohol-free coaching certificate, or even a program at a university, who's to say they're not qualified? Like, that's ridiculous, right? And, not every coach obviously needs a certificate, but I think that that is probably the way to go. One, to actually train yourself to know what you're doing. But two, like, then it almost shuts up that fear. And if people come to you and they're like, who do you think you are to be teaching this? You're like, well, I went to school for it, actually. Like, I got trained. I'm a professional now with this. And you start small. You do start small. So you start, like, coaching, one client at a time. Or maybe, the way I actually started is I started just by blogging. Before I got certified, I just started sharing my advice on the internet for free. And you could do that in a blog, you could do that in social media. So there's always a place to get started. And I think that we need more people who are willing to help versus how many people are out there that actually need the help or the support. And the thing is that, my message and the way I look and the way I talk about it is just one thing. And another person would probably not listen to me and just not relate to me at all. And so we need all these different kinds of humans out there, I believe, being the change that they want to be and helping other people. So how did I know I wanted to become a coach? Honestly, I was alcohol free for about 2 months, and something just hit me from beyond. It literally told me I'm supposed to start Euphoric. I didn't know exactly what it was supposed to look like. I didn't actually know I was going to be working one-on-one with people at first. I thought I'd just be providing courses to people, but it kind of evolved as I went along. I got all my certifications. I got certified twice. I'm constantly looking at, getting more education under my belt just because I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with helping people and learning any new method that will do so, and then you start to quiet those voices of like, who the hell am I to do this? You start to get experience. You start to like know what you're talking about. You start to really get professional training under your belt, and that's how you're qualified, right? And it builds over time. And so the thing to remember is everybody starts at square one. Like, everybody starts at day one when it comes to, starting a business, or starting maybe becoming a thought leader, or getting online and blogging. Everyone starts at like 0 followers. Everyone starts at 0 like blog viewers. Everyone starts at 0 clients. Everyone did too. All the famous people we know and admire, like Tony Robbins or Rachel Hollis, or even me, like we all started at 0. Like, we had nothing, right? And we just slowly built one little brick at a time, and then another little brick, and then another little brick, and another little brick, and before you know it, you have a house. So like, the teeniest baby steps add up. And what I think is way more important than quality even necessarily, obviously you want to have like quality work, but what I mean by quality is sometimes we think that it has to be perfect until we release it into the world. Your website doesn't have to be perfect before you release it. Your social media stuff does not have to be perfect. Good enough is so much better than perfect, because good enough gets the job done. And then in that way, you kind of stop overanalyzing every little step you take, and you just keep consistently taking the steps. So instead of quality, it becomes really about consistency. And consistency means showing up. It doesn't even have to be every day, right? It's easier to say show up every day, but obviously, you have a life, you have a personal life, maybe you have a 9 to 5 that you're working as you're building a business, and you show up consistently, whatever that looks like for you, whether that's 3 times a week or 4 times a week or 5 times a week, and you just start building the basic building blocks from there. So that's the answer. How I knew I wanted to become a coach. I knew I wanted to help other people. I knew that I was meant to make a direct impact in people's lives. I knew I wanted to always be also for my own lifestyle. I knew I wanted to not have a boss. I knew I wanted to live a freedom lifestyle where I'm not tied to something. I can go travel whenever I want. Me and my husband are going to spend 3 months in Europe this summer. We're going to be traveling all over. Like, that's just the dream for me. These are the things I've always wanted. And so not only did I marry this passion that I have of helping people, and especially helping the version of me that the message I needed to hear, but also I married it with the lifestyle I want, right? Like, being my own boss, being a speaker, being someone who has their own podcast and their own show, being someone who has clients, being someone who travels even to work, being someone who travels whenever they want, being someone who really is come to being a thought leader in their own field, and starting to really build a career out of that instead of, wishing on the sidelines. Because that's what I used to do before when I still drank. I did a lot of wishing with absolutely no action. So I hope that was really helpful for you, because if you are starting to ask this question yourself, and I know a lot of people are, I know a lot of people, because the first step is removing alcohol, and then the second step is really exploring what possibilities exist for you. And that is really a natural occurrence. And I think when you don't explore what possibilities are there for you, if you just go back to life as it was, you miss this huge point of leverage where, like, maybe the big dream that you've always had is finally going to come to fruition because you've taken this path. Always, I want you to know you don't ever have to do any of this alone. I coach people who are newly alcohol free to help them discover what that new passion project is going to be in their life, whether that's becoming a coach themselves or launching another type of business or perhaps writing a book. And I also do business coaching for clients who are already have an established business, or they already are certified as coaches, and they really need to understand, how do I market? How do I put my systems in place to really attract leads to me? And how do I work on my mindset still, the fear of showing up or the fear of charging, or all the different things that come up when you launch a business. So if you're interested in either of those, feel free to go to euphoricaf.com/coaching and you can read about them. And I just want to thank you for showing up today, joining me. I will be back next Wednesday at 8 a.m. and it was so good to see you.